Hey friends, in this conversation, I chat with Dave Tucker, who's the Assistant Vice President of Research at McMaster University. Dave was kind enough to give us a tour of the McMaster Research Reactor, but let's jump right into the conversation as David tells us a bit more about the production of radiomedical isotopes here at the McMaster Nuclear Reactor.
So medical isotopes, which is an important revenue stream for us, but also a very important reason to get up in the morning and come to work. Right? People here, and you'll see some of the heroes that are working in our medical isotope operation as we walk around, very passionate about the work that they do. And we supply the world's leading supplier of iodine-125, which is used for iodine brachytherapy, primarily for prostate cancer. We make enough for 70,000 treatments a year. It's about 60% of the world's supply. One of only two main sort of global scale suppliers. There's other local suppliers. So we feel fantastic about that, and it's a real, a very important contribution to health globally. We're sending that material all around the world every day for people to, companies that incorporate that radioactive iodine into little sources, sealed sources the size of a grain of rice that can then get inserted into solid tumors. Mostly prostate cancer, also melanoma of the eye, and expanding applications in other solid cancers. So that's awesome. We're also the first North American site, the only North American site of a new, it's called a radioembolic therapy treatment, holmium-166, which we do with a company called Querum Spheres. They're out of the Netherlands. And that is a emerging therapy for liver cancer. So it's, we make holmium-166 embedded into, it's one of the many emerging medical isotopes that have importance, along with lutetium-177, which we're also producing here. But we put the holmium in Querum Spheres has designed this approach where it really goes into gummy bear material to hold the holmium, and then it's injected into the liver and goes to the tumor in the liver and is there and irradiates the tumor cells and kills the tumor. So it's a radiotherapeutic. Clinical trials are starting in Canada because we're able to produce that material here. So this is really our role in the medical isotope field, is to be the nimble place where people can develop new approaches, produce medical isotopes that they can't easily get commercially at scale. We're here, if we want to put a new target in the reactor and make a new medical isotope for someone to do research with, at a small scale, we could do that this afternoon. Right? So we have the licensing and safety infrastructure that enables us to do research with the reactor. When you get to a very large production facility, they're awesome at bulk production, to feed a big market. But they need the innovation end that comes from a facility like this, a research reactor. So we do a commercial scale supply for iodine-125, but we're also here to serve the research community developing emerging medical isotopes and using them in emerging radiopharmaceuticals, either for diagnostic or therapeutic applications. We're very proud of that. You mentioned our turbine blades. That's another area of importance for us. So our reactor is, as we talked about earlier, operates to produce neutrons. We're a neutron factory. And those have applications to make medical isotopes. They also have applications for material science and neutron imaging. So from our beam lines that we'll show you in the reactor, researchers can either put materials in front of those beam lines and study the way the neutrons are scattered through them to do research on the properties of new materials. Very important for developing the materials that are going to drive the economies and the clean energy solutions of the future. We also do neutron radiography. So it's just like radiography with X-rays, only the reverse. Radiography with neutrons shows the neutrons go right through metal that stops X-rays. They would go right through bone if we were doing, a living specimen or with an X-ray. So one of the important applications of that is we host a company here called NRAY that does the safety inspection of turbine blades for jet engines. And they have a very high percentage, 90-something percent of the North American inspection market for turbine blades. So if you've flown in a jet engine, in a plane with a jet engine made in North America, the turbine blades in that engine were inspected for safety here. And there's 100,000 plus blades examined here for safety a year. So we're contributing to health, we're contributing to medical and material science research for the future, and we're contributing every day to aircraft safety all across, especially North America, but around the world. So it's a great mission. It's an exciting place to work.
So Dave, just how long has the reactor been here for, and when was it built?
The reactor was first operated in 1959. So we have it. Well, we like to say it's 63 years young. Almost 64 years now, young. It's a great design of a reactor. Brilliant people designed and built this reactor in the 1950s. It's low temperature, it's low pressure. We don't have the issues of aging that many, like a power reactor would have. And it's an open pool design, as you'll see it when we go inside. So we can constantly replace components of the reactor. And so really, as I say, 63 years young, all the important pieces get replaced over time, and we keep the reactor young. So there's no limit on the life of this reactor. It will operate as long as it's got an important research and medical isotope mission to fulfill, and educational mission. That's another very important aspect of our presence here. So 63 years we've been operating a 5 megawatt research reactor right here in the heart of a community.
When it was built, it was such a new technology. And was there any excitement or was there any controversy at the time?
Really, I would say our history has been controversy-free. We contribute to research, medical isotopes, and nuclear education. I wasn't here in the 1960s. I suspect at some point there might have been somebody walking around with a sign, but certainly in our modern existence, we have tremendous support from the community. It's a real economic driver. We run tours for high school students to try to demystify what nuclear technology is all about. So in an average year, a non-COVID year, we have 2,500 or 3,000 visitors who come in and look at an operating reactor core, as you're going to in a few minutes, and say, wow, I'm standing here looking at a reactor core operating. And so that's very impactful. We've hosted tours for communities that are thinking about hosting nuclear facilities and waste management facilities, for example, to try to just get some balance in the messaging about nuclear. Not that we're messaging, but here it is. You can see it. You can decide for yourself. How comfortable do you feel as you stand on a bridge over our reactor core watching it? Right?
Dave, is it true that the McMaster Nuclear Reactor is the most powerful research reactor operating in Canada? And can you tell me a bit about the history and significance of this milestone?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So you're right. We are the largest research reactor in Canada now after the closure of the NRU reactor. So we are looking to fulfill that need for all of the country's scientists, certainly for medical isotope research and production. This is the only place in Canada that you can develop new medical isotope production methods and new radiopharmaceuticals that go with those reactor-based products. We're starting, and we were in a meeting just before you arrived, planning out the start of a project that is building facility that'll be the home to moving their research activities to our reactor, and we're building out new beam lines and a new reactor beam hall to accommodate that. So the neutron scientists that do material research for the materials of the future are, in fact, it's got a nice poetic name, Building a Future for Canadian Neutron Scattering. This will be their base of operation, and they will be training new generations of scientists here, doing their preliminary work, doing some of the, we're a medium brightness source. We're not one of the sort of top cutting edge neutron research facilities in the world, but people can develop their tools and their methods here and use this as the base when they go to those very specialized international facilities to make excellent use of it. And of course, because the reactor's here, we have all of the nuclear and nuclear adjacent education programs. So we're training the next generation of nuclear engineers. We're training health physicists and radiation biologists. All of the nuclear culture that's grown up in our university that promotes this sort of nuclear comfort, nuclear awareness, nuclear education level, utilizing not just our reactor, but our world-class suite of nuclear facilities.
So Dave, I'm a bit more familiar with CANDU reactor technology, but tell us a bit more about this reactor. Is it cooled by light water, heavy water?
It is a light water reactor. It's an open pool reactor, so we're going to stand on a bridge, like I said, and look at the reactor core. That gives us tremendous flexibility in terms of being able to do irradiations in the reactor core and adjacent to the reactor core. We have pneumatic systems that shoot samples into the neutron flux of the core and then take them back to our labs for analysis. So it is a light water reactor. We use high assay, low enriched fuel, HALEU fuel, the same kind of fuel that SMRs need to operate. So
20%, is that?
Close to under 20%, yeah, 19.75.
Can you tell us a bit more about the fuel supply chain for the reactor?
Yeah, we have a very secure source of supply that'll take care of us for the next several years.
Right.
But yeah, that is a problem that needs to be solved, but I think that is being solved for the future of the nuclear industry, is to broaden and secure the supply of high-assay, low-enriched uranium to drive our next generation of nuclear technologies and our last generation of research reactors as well. Right? Yeah.
So small modular reactors and net zero initiatives are really mainstream nowadays. What role is McMaster planning to play in enabling that future?
So one of the important roles that McMaster can play in enabling the net zero future, and the role that SMRs can play, and we're really excited to bring our expertise from running 63 years of safe operating history of a small reactor, and bring that to bear for the country, showing how a very small reactor can operate and really drive the transformation of a community through energy abundance and clean, safe, reliable energy. So we have a vision that we're studying of building a net zero community of the future, a community that'll be a place where people live, work, study, and do research on the optimal way to deploy and utilize this clean, abundant energy, all driven by a micromodular reactor. So we have a memorandum of understanding with Ultrasafe Nuclear Corporation and Global First Power to do a feasibility study for a deployment of their reactor here on the campus. Ontario is at the absolute forefront in the world for deploying SMRs with the Darlington project and the Chalk River project. We're at the front. People are looking to Ontario to see how we should do this. But to get to realizing the vision, we've got to get to community deployments. We've got to get off the big existing nuclear sites and figure out the pathway to build small reactors for communities to drive the transformation of those communities. And that's what we want to show here. We want to do that, and what we're studying is how we could do a project that builds a community around this reactor, that captures using some McMaster technology, the integrated community energy harvesting system. We want to capture all of the electricity, but also all of the so-called waste heat from the reactor secondary site, and use that to drive light industry, to drive commerce, and to drive technologies that we think are important for perhaps remote and indigenous communities to see enabled, like water purification and water treatment, like desalination, like greenhouses that provide year-round food security in a changing climate. So we're looking for partners and advice on how to make this a project that's really meaningful for indigenous and remote communities, and we're developing this vision and doing a study of how we can do that. And we feel this is a very important pathway, in that McMaster is the right place to step up and lead and be the next phase of Ontario at the front of the world, deploying SMRs to achieve net zero and achieve energy transformation.